The fuel subsidy report, well, you know that the House of Representatives, I should clarify that, they're over and done with their recommendations. And last time we checked, the presidency says they've not received a copy of the report, but there have been statements from the AGF and the coordinating minister of the economy about what will be done or how, or procedure that should be followed before anything is done. Well, this morning we're joined by Mr. George Eke, legal practitioner. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you so much.
Well, yes, you of course, you follow some of these matters, and some of the latest comments from the AGF seems to be causing some sort of controversy, as in the intention. Will anything eventually be done? Because some think that they're hiding behind the fact or the reason that, based on the recommendation of the House of Representatives, we cannot prosecute on that basis. What do you think about that?
Well, I read the report, and in some of the dailies, it was like there was this controversy between the Minister for Economic, Okonjo-Iweala, the
coordinator minister,
and the AGF. But you see, when I read between the lines, I found out that they were saying the same thing without people knowing. But you see, it had to do with the mood of the nation. You see, we have been traumatized so much so that the Nigerians can't wait any longer. But you see, there is a caution that goes with it. People will expect that with these explosive reports that has been churned out by the House of Representative Committee, that a number of people will be heading towards jail. You know, it's like hard them to jail. But the AGF is saying the due process will take effect. That is to say, we will also respect the legal processes of prosecuting people. I tell you something, raw as explosive and as annoying as the House of Representative report is, you can't take it to court. They are facts. Yes, they are facts, but you need to process the facts to have some evidential value. The one they now have evidential value, you can prosecute on that. If for any reason you, like I noticed that the SNG, or the Save Nigeria Group, and quite a number, Labour have said they have given ultimatum to government to prosecute in the next 2-3 weeks and all of that. It doesn't work that way. If you throw those, if you take that probe report to court, all the people who are indicted, all the offenders will just walk away. Because first and foremost, there have been controversy with regard to even who paid who. There are conflicting reports from CBN and NNPC. And with that kind of conflict, it is only the court that can resolve it. But if you, for any reason, throw that report exactly the way it is, you cannot get anything out of it. Then it will become a problem of the judiciary. No, then Bengadane had been released. Oh, Ibori had been released. Oh, Dimeji Bankole had been released. All of that. Because the evidential value of what they are prosecuted with it comes to nothing. It's just watered down. And once you go to court without a good case, it will be thrown out of the window. That's just how it works.
But some of these things, I know you're not in the civil society.
So back to what the AGF said.
Yeah.
You see, there is a context. There is also a content to criminal procedure. The House of Representative probe panel is a merely administrative panel. They are not capable of declaring anybody guilty because they have delved into criminality. But it is a good document for Jonathan to work with. The president can work with that. Why can he work with that without even recourse to the court? Is that the man who has right to hire has the right to fire for a good reason, for a bad reason, or for no reason at all. We are expecting that with that report and the earth-shaking revelations that we got, heads will begin to roll. And I tell you something, there is theatrics in government. You have to act some Nollywood at particular points in time. Bang your the table and begin to do one or two earth-shaking, take one or two earth-shaking decisions by way of this man goes, 2 heads rose here, and all of that. So there is acting in government.
So you believe
but
that
what we are seeing in government is a feeble, response. Joy Emode comes and addresses us that the president has vowed to. She tells us what the president said. The country is suffering a hemorrhage If anything, that is the time for the president to come out. Do one or two things in line with the expectations of the people. Like I told you, there is acting in government. At particular points in time, a politician is supposed to cry even when he doesn't have tears.
So what you're saying is that the report itself is strong enough to be acted upon even without heading to the courts?
Yes, administratively, you get the point. But you see, you cannot convict those people except you pass through the judicial process. You see, what EFCC is doing now, because I noticed that EFCC has set up a 60-man panel, committee, looking at all these, the report itself. What they are trying to do is to begin to establish a criminal nexus between, say, for instance, one of the facts, that a man sat down somewhere and wrote a check of 128 checks, signed 128 checks, all of them 999 million and all. At that level, you smell rat when you are fact-finding, you get the point? But you see, you need to establish a nexus between this signing of this check, which is mere suspicion as it is now, because everybody knows that something wrong has gone place. Has happened. But you need to tie it to a particular provision of the law that has been violated to be able to grant the conviction.
Because we understand the agitation on the part of Nigerians. Because when the AGF says, well, yes, as it is, it's strong enough, but we can't prosecute based on that, that they have to respect the regular government agencies set up for that, like institutions, police, the corruption agencies.
Yeah, sure. Because they have prosecutorial powers.
They have it.
The National Assembly does not.
Okay, so when Nigerians cry out, it's because they are frustrated with what has happened before with these same agencies. So that's understandable.
Yes. So that's the point I'm making now, that even without going to court, there are quite a number of things that will begin to happen now. PPRA, DPR, all of those who are... Because what I'm telling you now is that the president has a right to hire. Attendant to that right to hire, right to fire. Even if that position has a statutory flavor, because there are certain positions you just cannot fire the person except you pass through the National Assembly and all of them. Begin to find ways around it. Let us begin to see that you are doing something in that regard, while the court takes its own process. Because the process of the court is longer, in the sense that if you do not tie this evidential value that, the dispatch to some level of prosecutable evidence, you will walk away you having your case dismissed.
One of the things that the National Assembly, the House of Representatives more specifically, has said is that they will definitely follow up on their report. How can they follow up? We all know that they're not a prosecutory body. They cannot prosecute the alleged offenders in this particular report. What can they do to follow up?
So you see, there are so many things to do to follow up. One of which is, at all points in time, you keep passing either a resolution or you keep insisting by way of oversight function with regard to what has happened to this particular report. Because you see, for the first time, Nigerians have seen a report. We have had probes. Quite a number of them just died prematurely. We have had several of them. This is one probe that they tried to see if they could beat down. Farouk Lawal refused. So we are quite excited. As a matter of fact, that is why Nigerians are agitated with regard to something must be done on this report. And that if I were the president, something really has to be done on this report.
Why is it so difficult, really, if we have to go back from where you started from, for Nigerians to understand that the coordinating minister and the Attorney General of the Federation were actually speaking on the same, in fact, on the same ship?
You think they were sounding discordant tones?
Yeah, that's the headline we got.
Yeah.
No. You see, it depends on the understanding of the journalist. You see, that particular Friday that this news came, I read about 4 newspapers. In some newspapers, there was a merger of this opinion. In other newspapers, they were alarmist, almost like this person had disagreed with this. What Okonjo-Iweala said is that the people must be prosecuted. By implication, what the AGF said is that they will be prosecuted, but not now. What he's saying is that let us be able to do the investigation, because there is a difference between a probe, which is a fact-finding thing, which is what the National Assembly had done. Then there is a difference between enforcement investigation. Enforcement investigation is all that we have seen. How do we tie it to something that we can go to court and get and secure a conviction? It's different.
You know, it's quite.
So, in other words, while the Nigerians want their result, like they got the answers by fire, let us have it the next 2 weeks or thereabout. What the AGF is saying that law does not operate that way, because it takes a court to be able to say who even stole. I give you this small example. Stealing, ordinarily, everybody. I mean, Sula, if you get to your house now and one of your things may have been stolen, you know that it's been stolen. But you see, in law, stealing has a different interpretation. That person who stole it must have intention to permanently deprive you of the use of it. Intention to permanently deprive you. There's a classical English case where somebody stole a bicycle, used it for about 8 days or thereabout, and was returning it. And of course, they caught him as having stolen the bicycle. The court said he didn't have intention to permanently deprive the owner of the disease. So they charged him for the lease of that bicycle, for the rent of that bicycle for 8 days. But the ordinary eye is that he stole. And that's how it happened. Even there's a Nigerian case where a lawyer was insisting in court that the particular statement made by his client that the police refused to bring it. And of course, what the police normally does. Do you know what the lawyer did? He broke into the police file, stole, using that word, quote and unquote, the file, photocopied all of those documents, and appeared in court and said, "My lord, this is the document we have been saying that the police." In short, when he was returning it on a Monday, the police put a handcuff on him as having stolen the file. The court said you can only charge him for burglary. And illegally acquired evidence is admissible in court so long as it is relevant. The court pounced on the document which the police has been taken. But he stole it from the police. He didn't intend to permanently deprive the police of the use of that file. So it wasn't stealing. So it is not for the ordinary person to determine what stealing is. It is the court of competent jurisdiction. And again, the standard of proof, like I keep telling you, if we are talking about a criminal matter, preponderance of evidence, that legal, the imaginary scale of the law. You put your own evidence, you put it this way, and we find out which one is. Okay, that's for civil matter. The moment it is a criminal matter, it is no longer preponderance of evidence or balance of probability. It becomes proof beyond reasonable doubt. So, for you to be able to prove beyond reasonable doubt, you have to do a proper investigation. And for a lawyer that is appearing on the other side, he may not say precisely that my client did not steal. He who alleges must prove. Prove. He keeps quiet and keeps asking you to prove. If you're unable to prove, his client walks away.
But this thing happens, well, maybe with politicians it's also understandable. But when it happens with lawyers, who we understand or who we expect to understand the law, when they call meetings, when they hold rallies, when they visit the National Assembly or House of Reps and say, yes, help us follow up, make sure this thing sees the light of day. What is the intention? Because we know that they know procedures have got to be followed, and the House of Reps don't have that prosecutory power. So what could their intention be when all these things happen?
You see, I have a different approach to it. It's time we began to have genuine NGOs, civil society organizations. As a matter of fact, the police, even though the House of Representatives has said they are interested in following up, somebody should be able to follow up on the House of Representatives itself. Because the House of Representatives is not holier than thou.
Why? They're politicians?
They're politicians. They have their interests. It's just because we are lucky to have Farouk Lawal and this matter was exposed. Otherwise, the power probe, what do you call the other one, the stock exchange probe, and everything is immersed in some kind of scam or whatever. But this one is like it must see the light of the day, and it did. So the point I'm making again, going back to my recommendation, is that we should begin to get genuine civil society organizations run by credible people. When Ganifa Ami was alive, did anybody see him with a briefcase in any minister's reception looking for a contract? Such people are the people who when you rally around them, you know you are pursuing something. Even when he died, he said, dismantle my chambers because I'm not too sure whether they're going to use it to defend cases that I ordinarily wouldn't have defended when I was alive. Such people are principled. We're not talking about the SNG, for instance. In this program, we don't discuss persons. But you see, we can discuss actions. This is the SNG that came at a particular point in time and told us about military dictators and how bad they are. Their leader, while he was carrying a placard trying to save Nigeria, we didn't know he had his resume on the other hand. And by the time he now got an appointment to run as running mate to Buhari, He came out and told Nigerians that's the greatest statesman that ever lived was Buhari. Flip-flopping. And I noticed that, I mean, one of your guests about last week was referring to them as CPC. I mean, that's probably extreme or whatever. But the important thing is that they are not people to rely on.
So now,
these are the same people who said, go ahead and prosecute in the next 2 weeks, otherwise we go to the streets. They are unable to know that you just cannot prosecute with this raw data without processing them.
what can happen? Because if we have Nigerians who will not be satisfied with perhaps the way the police will handle this matter, or the way the ICPC or AFCC or any agency of government will handle this matter, can they on their own prosecute?
Of course they do. I mean, quite a lot of cases where Nigerians had to. I mean, the Nigerian who, I mean, the what we call local standard in law has been so much enlarged of late. I mean, of recent. You know, such that what you didn't have local standard for in those days, you could now. So of course, so the court has been enlarging that such that once your interest, you can establish some interest, no matter how remote it is, the court will hear you.
You know, some group have been calling for some independent prosecutor to be used for this particular case. Is that also possible?
Yeah, independent prosecutors are good. Just like, again, I said, it depends on the integrity of the independent prosecutor. Because like you and I know, what is at stake is huge. We are talking about a refund of about 1 trillion. It is 1-point-something trillion. That's what is to be refunded.
This is bigger than some people's budgets.
I mean,
states.
I said you cannot be talking about this amount of money when the populace is living in penury. When half of the youths are wandering all over the place without a job, the security implication of what we are talking about, you don't need an NSA to tell you that all the youths that are unemployed are also part of the people who are hearing that this amount of money have been frittered.
No, but
the same youths also do know that the pension fund that is meant for the old people. I mean, this is one country where that does not respect its senior citizens. And like I said before, it is one country where the old man is not entitled to a tablet of Panadol when he gets sick. Meanwhile, he is the person who worked either as a railway worker or messenger or wherever that made it possible for us to have this country in the first instance where we are defrauding. But when he wants to die, we look away. He should die. Meanwhile, old people's medication is a major issue in elections all over the world. How do they get their medication? Who takes care of them and all of that? But here we are, even the little money that they are entitled to, they are dying in their queues. Meanwhile, we are taking away billions belonging to them. And in such circumstances, the president cannot continue to keep quiet. You get the point? He should be able to come out and say 1 or 2 things that he can be quoted for.
Even if it's not verbal, you could institute some actions.
Oh, I said the language is both body and verbal.
and verbal.
Okay.
It comes with the job.
Mr.
I mean, this thing comes with the job. You cannot avoid it. It comes with the job.
Where is the place of facts in society? I mean, for instance, now we have heard that all that has come out of the probe is facts, and even some people are still disputing those facts. Can we for sure then say, in spite of all the protests against some of the issues that have been raised, that we do have a book of facts on what happened in the petroleum downstream sector?
Oh, sure, without doubt. As a matter of fact, it is like walking from, I mean, we now have a pedestal to walk with. The National Assembly had done half of the job that the EFCC is going to do. Like I said, what the EFCC is now going to do is to begin to attach evidential value to those facts. Those facts are very, very relevant. But you see, quite a number of them are at the level of suspicion. And no matter how strong suspicion is, you can't take it to court until you would have grounded it as evidence. So you get the point? So those facts are, I mean, the law works with facts.
So that's why the government needs to do its own investigation.
No, that's why the prosecutorial agencies, namely EFCC, ICP, I think EFCC more than any of them, needs to begin to make use of these facts. And especially those areas that are being contested. Oh, CBN paid this amount of money to NNPC. NNPC said it's not exactly what was paid. You know, that double payment area and all of that. Those are hazy areas that needs to be sorted out. And it is in this investigation that it can come up. Maybe at the level of the House of Representatives, quite a number of those documents couldn't have been made available to them. But EFCC comes into an NPC, nobody can deny them of the use
They've
of
got
any
the powers
document. Good.
see
You
those
notice that there were some people that were summoned to the probe panel. They ignored the House of Representatives. You can't do that to EFCC. You just cannot do that. So that is why we are saying that Nigerians should have some patience and let us attach some, evidential value to these facts that have been found out, and then we prosecute those people. And I have a feeling that they will go to jail.
Well, this is the one from the House of Reps. Does the Senate matter in this matter? Because they also started their probe before that of the House of Reps, as a matter of fact.
Well, as a matter of fact, the House of Reps has brought out its own report, while the Senate is still sleeping on its own. And we do not know what they are doing. And to the extent that it has not been made a public document, to that extent we cannot comment on what they have found out.
Okay, because I asked that with respect to the fact that do they need to be on the same page on this matter to harmonize their views and say, well, the National Assembly agrees that this must be done or should be done?
Okay, it depends on what they found out. Because if they found something different, remarkably different from what the House of Representatives found out, then it will become an issue for discussion. But for now, what is on our table is the House of Representatives probe report, and we like it.
But at the moment, because if this is the way this is, recommendations merely, do you see a situation where the National Assembly or House of Representatives say, okay, well, we don't like the way this thing is going. Our resolutions must have some force of law.
Well, we to that extent, we may need to amend the Constitution to begin to give them the power of the judiciary. And that they would not have. You get the point? Because you see, there is a particular section of governance, out of the three arms, that its business is, when you finish your probe, or whatever facts you can, bring it to us. We can look at it, just like I've given you an example of what stealing is. For the ordinary man, stealing, once you remove something, you have stolen it. But in law, it doesn't happen that way. And you need to be in the judiciary, or you need to be a lawyer, to be able to know that that is how it works.
Is it also possible that at the end of the day, I mean, with all this resolution, with the zeal and passion Nigerians want something to be done, and then at the end of the day, they go to court, whichever agency, and loses the case?
No, say that again.
If they go with this evidence, prosecution goes with that, does the investigation, and then they go to court, they can also lose the case, can't they?
No, if they have a watertight case, I mean, they will not. They will not. I mean, if you prepare it well. You see, those days when we are starting practice, we always believe that the police can mess up your case. The police can, they are the prosecutors, especially at the magistrate level. And the police refuses to do what is needful. The offender simply walks away. The reason is that it was not properly prosecuted. It's not that the offender did not commit the crime alleged. That's how it happens.
And that's a possibility in this matter, because you see, we're talking about 1 trillion.
Yes.
So that 1 trillion won't sit back and not fight back. So
yes.
It can go through different institutions to make sure that this thing it doesn't see the light of day also.
So, but you see, just like the Speaker of the House of Representatives mentioned, when corruption wants to fight back, it fights dirty. So they should be able to know that a man who probably stole trillions is most likely going to bandy some 100 billion to you. 100 billion to you is irresistible.
Not many people can.
In all contexts, in all cultures, not just in Nigeria. And if a thing like that happens, so we should also be aware. It now means that we have to raise our antenna. Our guards have to be up to be able to say, look, there's a likelihood of this man coming in the middle of the night to say, look, take 50 billion out of this and keep your mouth shut. You should be able to shout louder at the point in time when that 50 billion lands.
Comment on this part also, because, I mean, there's this part of that talk that says the reason why they're not so optimistic about it is that some of these monies, remember, it was election year where the subsidy matter was so bloated, the gap was not just reconcilable with the previous years, which was not an election year. Some of these monies, some say, went to the PDP. And so if that were the case, what are we talking about?
You see, it is also a lesson to us for politicians, in the sense that if you notice, quite a number of issues of fraud have a way of tracing that it's part of the money I donated to the ruling party or for election and all of that. And once you compromise, it becomes difficult. It's naturally difficult for you to wield the big stick on the person. You remember the story between Odros Okalo and Obasanjo? Over and above the tough nature of Obasanjo when he was president. I think he had some altercation or whatever with Ojos Okalu, then governor of Abia State. He said, I gave you money to contest election. Wow. I sponsored you with such and such amount of money. And Obasanjo, in his usual manner, said, if you gave me money, bring out the receipt. He said, okay, I'll bring my receipt if Dangote brings out his own too. But of course, you notice that they had running battles, all of that. Because, you see, over and above, or in addition to the fact that Obasanjo was being feared as a very effective president at that point in time, he couldn't do much to Ojos Okalu. Because Ojos Okalu feels he has compromised. So, it is important we begin to avoid such monies. Because at that point in time, that contractor or businessman is giving you that money, he is going to hold you to ransom at a point in time when you need to take national decisions that are in the interest of the nation.
It's not a free lunch.
So it's not a free lunch. So the man is about to maybe wink at you. I hope you remember what happened to that money. And that you are most likely going to kill that report. Because if you pursue that report, you will expose yourself. So it is a very major lesson and a big warning for those donors, so to speak, who want to sponsor you and make sure that you win election, that at a particular point in time, there will be a day of reckoning.
Well, that's an interesting lesson and an interesting point, but who knows? But another matter for all of us in this matter is that, well, yes, so many groups want something to be done about this, but at the end of the day, again, we'll keep going back to that matter, the EFCC, the ICPC, the police, and because of one thing going right or going wrong. But assuming the president just moves on some of these matters, and then how long will it take the police or the EFCC or the ICPC? Could it take as much as 2 years for prosecution to happen at the end of the day?
You see, there are some good judges. I mean, quite a number of them are good. But there are some judges that do not want to entertain frivolous applications. Because you see, the trick we lawyers play is that once your client is arrested, probably the first 2-3 weeks you are battling to give him a secure bail for him and all of that. The moment he gets bail, you begin to seek very long adjournments and all of that. And that's actually what delays judgment, as it were. But you see, that's a beautiful thing that Fashola has also done, being a senior advocate himself and knows these tricks, as it were. This front-loading thing that takes place is almost like, in civil matters, it has solved a lot of problems. But okay, in criminal matters, where rights and privileges, I mean, the rights of the individual, the right is so respected that almost everything is tied to his constitutional rights. It appears to drag. But there are some judges, if bring in an application that she obviously knows, or he obviously knows is a frivolous application, he said, move your application. He dismisses it right there in front of you. The most that can happen is that you begin to go upstairs, like we say in law. You go to Court of Appeal and all of that. And by the time you go there, you put a stay of proceeding on the lower court. And by the time you come back, you probably would have even appealed up to the Supreme Court. The substantive matter is still there. By the time you now come back, they start the substantive matter. The judge coughs in a manner you don't like. You said, look, he's biased. You go on appeal again. The substantive matter has not been. So that is why those things are there. But you see, you would have found out that there are quite a number of cases in 2 years. They have disposed of those cases. It depends on the judge.
Because many of those people mentioned or indicted in that book, that report, they have actually gone to the courts as if, it's going to be a forever thing. That is why most people are already saying they needed an independent prosecutor to go into all of that.
Well, if you need an independent prosecutor, you will not also need an independent judge. The independent prosecutor has to get key into the judicial system. That's why I started my analysis from the judge. It depends on the judge. There are some no-nonsense judges that they have been at the bar before they got to the bench. So the moment you are putting the application, they are laughing at you. They will dismiss it immediately in front of you. And do you have any other thing to say? He gives you a date. My lord, I shall be asking for a long adjournment. He said, no, we'll come back next week. And he brings out results. It depends on the judge. Even though a large extent, it depends on also the prosecutor, how watertight his case is. But in all cases, it depends on the judge.
In other words, ultimately, we may be looking at institutional framework or challenge concerning solving this matter. But tell us, how strategic is the role or the office of the AGF in this matter?
Oh, very, very strategic. Literally everything revolves around him. Oh, sure, it does. Indeed, if when they want, I mean, you notice what happened during the former AGF's administration when Ibori's case came, and it was like they were looking for certain documents to enable them prosecute him, you know, in UK and all of that. He simply sat on them. He simply sat on it. They wrote and he forgot them. And it took his going out for Ibori to be imprisoned because they needed documents to be able to prosecute his case. So if a mischievous AGF has unlimited power, you know the power of nolle prosequi. Nolle prosequi is that the AGF simply walks into the court or his representative and says, "My lord, we no longer want to continue with this case." There's no question as to why you can ask that question. You simply drop his pen and that's all, cause the next case.
So in some cases...
So that's how powerful an AGF is.
In this particular case, can you say that the judiciary will have to bring out its A game? Do you think the judiciary, you know, maybe should show Nigerians, and in this particular matter, we're equally as interested and will ensure the justice
you took it off my mouth. The judiciary has to be in its element now. Because, you see, there have been a series of bashing of the judiciary with regard to these corruption cases and all of that. And this is one report that every Nigerian has. In short, it's been moving from one laptop, from one...
all kinds of versions.
All over the place. So everybody has it as part of his file. And quite a number of Nigerians that are unhappy with what is happening, they come out in the morning and read it again. So how are you going to justify that to them that you have set those people free? As much as we agree that law has its own technicalities, you know, after we would have finished with all this esoteric language of whereas, notwithstanding all of that, the point is, has the man on the street seen justice to have been done? There's a principle of law that says justice not only must be done, must be seen to be done. And the person who is supposed to be seeing it to have been done is the mechanic, the wheelbarrow man, the person who didn't go to law school with you. Is he satisfied that justice has been done? So as much as you are doing the technicalities, make sure that that other person is also satisfied that justice has been done. That is why it is important to explain this, that if, for instance, the AGF says, we are not going to prosecute now, it is important we tell them why we are not prosecuting. That is simply because we are not ready with evidential proof to be able to prosecute. Not that we do not want to prosecute. Otherwise, that man will see justice as having not been done, and you have failed as a lawyer.
But the lawyers, they actually should be held responsible for some of these issues because the AGF has spoken. Some people who have come forward to criticize the AGF are also lawyers, and you ask yourself, from which constitution or which book are they holding against the AGF?
Well, you see, law is such a beautiful profession that there must be always a different opinion on the other side. The beauty of law is the argument. As a matter of fact, in one occasion, there was this test that a man was driving around Tinubu Square, where they said no parking, no stopping, and of course they clamped his tire. The local government hires you as a lawyer. When has parking taken place? Is it when the engine stops running, when the man has gone out of the car, or whatever? Or if the man himself hires you, when has he contravened that distance? The man is still sitting in his air-conditioned car, even though the intendment of the whole thing is make sure that you don't cause a traffic hold-up. But he has caused that traffic hold-up, but he's sitting in his car. Has he parked? So there are two opinions, full two opinions. But the matter must be decided one way or the other. So when you see lawyers disagree, they are disagreeing as a matter of part of the tenets of the profession.